Okay, let's dive right into this explainer by addressing a pain point I know we've all felt. You spend hours reading a brilliant book or slogging through a dense research paper, only to experience that dreaded information slip. You know exactly what I mean, right? You put the book down, you feel super inspired, and then, a few days later, you can barely explain the main idea to a friend. Well, today we're going to fix that. We're unpacking the absolute best heuristics for encoding, retaining, and synthesizing information. We have to start with a really basic, but honestly agonizing question. Why do we forget what we read? Like, why can we read an entire book, feel like an absolute genius in the moment, and then completely lose our grip on the core concepts just 24 hours later? The truth is, it's actually not a personal failing. It's literally a feature of how our brains are wired. Our working memory is limited, and our brains are just incredibly efficient at aggressively dumping information they don't think we need for survival. Now, think about the classic forgetting curve. There's this steep, plunging drop-off right after we learn something. That represents our memory of new info decaying rapidly, almost immediately, actually. But here's the magic part. Spaced review sessions build up resistance to that forgetting. Every single time you review the material right as it's starting to fade out of your brain, you flatten that curve. You're basically training your brain to hold onto the data for longer and longer intervals. It's like a workout for your memory. So here's how we're breaking this down today. 1. The memory problem. 2. Read actively, not passively. 3. Hack your brain's retention. 4. Synthesize and build systems. And finally, 5. The expert learner mindset. All right, jumping straight into section 1, the memory problem, the illusion of learning. Moving right along to section 2, read actively, not passively. Changing a slog into a hunt. Let's contrast our lazy habits against what actually gets results. Passive reading, just glazing your eyes over the text and nodding along, that is a guaranteed recipe for low retention. Compare that to active reading. This means you're actively asking questions, marking up the margins, and most importantly, paraphrasing. When you pause to write a one-sentence summary from memory in your own words, you're essentially forcing yourself to teach the material. And let me tell you, that creates a massive neural hook. Oh, and speaking of marking up texts, you definitely need to hear this. Limit your highlighting to just 10 to 20% of the text. I know. It is so tempting to paint the whole page neon yellow, but over-highlighting is actually kind of just mental laziness. Research actually shows that students who highlight too much are bypassing the critical thinking needed to figure out what's truly important. And the crazy part? Because of that, they remember less. Force yourself to choose only the absolute essence. Okay, section 3, hack your brain's retention, the science of memory. If you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, please let it be the 24-hour rule. Listen to this. Without a quick review or a self-quiz within a day of learning something new, you're going to lose up to 70 or 80% of that information. Yeah, 80%. By taking just, say, 10 minutes in the evening to skim your notes from that morning, you totally interrupt the forgetting process. You're signaling to your brain, hey, this stuff matters. Consolidate it while I sleep. Then we have interleaving practice. This just means mixing up different subjects or topics in a single study session. Why would you do that? Well, interleaving creates what experts call desirable difficulty. It stops you from slipping into autopilot, right? It actively fights that illusion of mastery by forcing your brain to recall the approach fresh every single time you switch topics. It definitely feels harder in the moment, but the learning becomes infinitely more robust. Next up is dual coding, which is another incredible brain hack. It's super simple. Just combine words with visuals. Say you read a complex economic principle, and then you quickly sketch out a flowchart or a timeline of it. By doing that, you're engaging both your linguistic memory and your visual memory. You're literally building two distinct neurological pathways to recall that info later. If the words fade out, the picture just might save you. All right, moving to section 4, synthesize and build systems, the arsenal of experts. First step in the arsenal is the fine-in technique. The absolutely crucial point here is brutal honesty. If you cannot explain a concept in plain, jargon-free terms to a smart 12-year-old, you don't really understand it. The process is simple. Write out an explanation for a layperson, and wherever you stumble or catch yourself using buzzwords, boom, you found a conceptual gap. Then you just go back to the source material to fill that specific gap. It's a foolproof filter for true comprehension. Next is progressive summarization. Digital note-takers absolutely love this one. The idea is to compress your reading material in layers over time. First pass, you highlight key points. A day later, you go back and bold the absolute best parts of those highlights. A week later, you use only those bolded parts to write a high-level, one-page summary. It engages your recall over and over, extracting the absolute core essence without ever losing the original context. Another super powerful system is the Zettelkasten concept. Originally, this was an actual physical slip box, but the rule is that each note you take captures just one idea, written purely in your own words, and crucially, it's linked to other related notes. It literally mirrors a well-connected brain. By linking ideas across totally different books and disciplines, you're building what investor Charlie Munger famously calls a latticework of mental models. It's a real game changer. Now, to actually implement all this, the pros generally rely on two distinct types of software. First, a digital second brain, think Obsidian or Notion, for mapping out associated thoughts and linking narrative notes. But for those discrete facts, definitions, or exact formulas that require word-for-word recall, they use spaced repetition software, like Anki. This automates your flashcard intervals based directly on that forgetting curve we talked about earlier. And our final section, Section 5, the expert learner mindset, from chore to lifestyle. A true memory master doesn't just use tricks. They deliberately curate their entire lifestyle around cognitive performance. They actively cultivate genuine curiosity before reading because, believe it or not, that primes the brain with a dopamine release, which biologically enhances learning. They treat deep work and unitasking like an athlete in training. We're talking zero distractions, pure focus. And honestly, most importantly, they know physical health isn't separate from mental health. Deep, quality sleep is strictly required for your brain to consolidate the memories you've encoded during the day. Simply put, if you don't sleep, you don't retain. So I'm going to leave you with the ultimate 1 month later test on this very explainer. Lots of experts believe learning isn't actually complete until you can retain it weeks later. So here's my challenge to you. Apply these heuristics right now. Sketch a dual coding diagram of what we just discussed, or set a 24-hour reminder on your phone to summarize this explainer. Are you going to let this information slip away, or will you actively encode it into your second brain? The choice of what you remember is completely up to you.